And not because he was the pious, shy type who was lowering his gaze. He was evidently the bored, simpering type who was thinking 1 month's army training in the bush was preferable to a Saturday night door-knock appeal. In my universe, instead of boyfriends, there were only potential husbands. Wasn't it every girl's dream to get proposed to? Well, try being proposed to no less than 17 times, including twice by one particularly overzealous suitor, since the age of 18. And they weren't sweeping, romantic, will you marry me written in the sky types of proposals. Like any courtship ritual, door-knock appeals had clear procedures. After the all-important first visit, a suitor would call if he liked me, or his mum told him he liked me, or we wouldn't hear back at all. It was rather like a first date with no obligation to call again, no matter how well you thought it went. Out of all the suitors, 4 or 5 had never called after our meeting. And I'd been through this enough times to realise Manga Boy's family certainly wasn't going to call. Insert confident woman of the world laugh of indifference. Still, dud factor notwithstanding, the majority had called. They hadn't seen enough to be turned off, or they'd seen enough to be keenly interested. I was living my very own Victorian era-style courtship. The only things missing were the fancy costumes and calling cards, and we didn't have a butler or a posh name for our house like Wyndham Cottage. But aside from that, the similarities were rather eerie. The minutes ticked by, and I realised I'd been playing a scene from Gladiator in my mind. The one where Maximus takes on the gladiator's ring by himself, then yells rather dramatically, "Are you not entertained?" I loved that movie. But naturally, this wasn't the best of signs. I directed my thoughts back to my stint as a sugar plum fairy. I remembered how the tinsel on my leotard had crinkled throughout the performance. I'd been so shiny and new. My moment in the spotlight. I'd held so much promise. The future had stretched before me in all its glory. And, as it had been kindy, the boys had boy germs and the girls had been all feminine and precious. As with warring gangs, the playground had observed strict boundaries, male versus female, West Side Story for tots, minus the tragic ending. Although I couldn't say I'd ever forgotten my first crush. Also Muslim, also named Muhammad. He'd broken my heart when he wouldn't share his mortadella sandwich with me. I hadn't invited him to my birthday party by way of revenge. Seeing as Mum didn't let me invite any boys, it hadn't been quite as sweet as I would have liked. Point was, there'd been very neat and logical divisions. Nobody had breached those boundaries. The rules had been strictly enforced. Note earlier observation on respective boy-girl germs. Not at all like this. Giving up a perfectly nice Saturday evening to be ignored. I would have much preferred to waste a Wednesday night being ignored. But moving on. I noticed that Manga Boy's hair had flopped a little to the side, and I found myself studying it closely. It must have been a science in itself, really. Ensuring the right amount of gel was applied to achieve maximum density. Getting the flip just right, allowing the hair to tumble as opposed to fall over his forehead. I'd never seen it in real life before. The manga look, that is. A feat of engineering. Oh God, it had come to this. I'd had my share of dud suitors, but I'd never, ever resorted to critiquing a man's hairstyle in such detail. So long as it wasn't a nod to Flock of Seagulls, the door knocker's hair was of little importance. Honestly, I didn't usually pay much attention to that sort of thing. I generally knew what to expect by now, even if Manga Boy did bring...